Well, it's only opening night, but there's already a lot to talk about. First, the Knicks and Celtics game. The Celtics looked virtually unstoppable again with their drive and kick game that is just so effective. It was helped by the fact that they got so many offensive rebounds, as the Knicks are still relatively small, with OG or Mikal off in the 4 compared to last year, where they had Ihart and Randall, with OG at the 3. Plus, the Knicks obviously don't have strong rim protection, so they quite often brought help and had to scramble back out to shooters, and the Celtics are able to pounce on that with their catch and shoot threes. And defensively, the Celtics are also really strong. Even without Porzingis, they started Jrue Holiday on Cat, and he was able to hold his own as he's strong and can box out, while Horford did get blown by a few times on just pump and fakes and goes, especially by Josh Hart, as that was who he was guarding. And I think the Knicks did look best when they attacked early in the shot clock. They often run this action near the top with Brunson coming off a double screen that I think is quite effective. But as we saw on display, their lack of outside shooting and depth was really detrimental, especially with how Horford was able to help off Hart, and Mikal was still struggling with his jump shot. The shot looked different to me again, more fluid, but it's still not consistent at all, and they did run quite a few down screens for him, but he's just still not hitting them. So I think the Knicks definitely need to invest in getting either Matt Ryan, or I think they've already signed Landry Shamet, but he's just injured, because they just need more outside shooting with the loss of DiVincenzo. He just gave their team another element with the ability to run off handoffs. And unless the Knicks sort things out really early into the season, there's just going to be a persistent debate whether the Knicks should have first trialed their team with Randall and DiVincenzo and just live with their lack of size at the 5 and seen if it was potentially a championship team and just made incremental upgrades at the center position. Because defensively, I would argue they're not that much better with Cat at the 5. We saw early in the game he was in drop, and that was just a disaster because Tatum could just run off a screen and hit a 3 in his face pretty much. In the second quarter, they did adjust, and Cat was blitzing, and Sims, of course, which did work much better in my opinion, but by that stage, the Celtics already had such a sizable lead, but that'll be something to watch, whether the Knicks are going to stay in drop or be a blitz team like they were, because teams are going to hunt Cat. He's pretty much their only defensive liability aside from Brunson, who is still fairly strong and difficult to move. The main positive for the Knicks though was Miles McBride, who was able to bail them out so many times offensively, and he's only on a 3-year $13 million contract, which is key for them because his team is about to get very expensive. So he should see serious playing time throughout the season, which is probably the Knicks' main issue at the moment, their depth. We saw Campaign, the rookie, died at, and I think they're just going to have to invest in free agents. I think they've already got a few roster spots open. And of course, for the Celtics, their main positive is just that the ball movement still works. They look so organized. And even when they do get stagnant and play iso ball, Tatum and Brown have grown into much more aggressive plays. Tatum especially has grown as a passer too. And they literally also have the 2 best role plays in the league with Derek White, who's grown into such a respectable outside shooter, and Jrue Holiday, who does all of the 1%ers and is just a great overall team player. But we'll move on to the other game of tonight, and there wasn't anything too surprising. We saw a snippet of what the Timberwolves could look like now that this is definitively Ant's team, and there were a lot of isolations for him, particularly in late game, which I'm not a huge fan of as the offense became really stagnant. And Ant still doesn't quite have the vision as a passer to where you can just run the whole offense through him. I mean, he did still make a lot of shots there late game, but there's just a lot of crossover between him and Julius Randle holding onto the ball and letting the defense load up. And again, it would be interesting to see if by the end of the season whether the Bulls are a better team than last season, or if the trade truly made both teams worse, as many commentators cautioned. I don't think Randle looked great tonight. His body language and effort was pretty low, and that's just part of the package with Julius Randle. Defensively, he had to guard LeBron late game, and that was obviously a struggle, but he didn't even get that much opportunity offensively. Even in the bench lineups, I don't think he was out there that much, and didn't have a lot of pick and roll opportunities or too much synergy with Rudy or Naz Reid, so that'll be something to watch too. For the Lakers, we already knew their starting lineup was great. It's really about figuring out what is the best bench lineups. I think the key to those lineups is probably going to be Dalton Knight as the season progresses. They did trial a lot of Jackson Hayes, and he shared the floor a little bit with Anthony Davis, who was very aggressive tonight, even against Rudy Gobert. But I just think Dalton Knight gives them another element with his off-ball movement, and we'll obviously have to see how they integrate Jared Vanderbilt eventually when he returns. But both teams have plenty of time to work these things out, so I'll leave it there, but let me know what you thought of tonight's games down below.